Hello and welcome to today's Policy Roundtable, entitled Safety and Security of Nuclear Facilities in Conflict Zones, the War in Ukraine. My name is Ariella Blatter. I am the President and CEO of Women in International Security, also known as WIIS. WIIS is a non-governmental organization promoting gender equality through helping women advance as leaders in the international peace and security sector. Our network spans nearly 50 countries and across 6 continents and includes over 15,000 members, committed to closing the gender equality gap worldwide. If you're not already part of our network, we encourage you to please join us. I want to first recognize and thank our partners for this event, the Embassy of Liechtenstein, Washington, D.C., and the Black Sea Women in Nuclear Network, a professional network for women working in the nuclear fields in the Black Sea region. I'd also like to acknowledge the great assistance given to us by the James Martin Center for Nonproliferation Studies at the Middlebury Institute for International Studies. Our event today will highlight the impact of the intersection of gender and nuclear security and safety. At issue is the current Russian invasion of Ukraine, an unprecedented attack amid the facilities of a large established nuclear power program. In fact, our discussion coincides with the 36th anniversary of the Chernobyl nuclear disaster. And as many of you will have seen, yesterday, IAEA Director General Grossi issued a report on the first assistance mission to Ukraine, visiting the Chernobyl nuclear power station and offering assistance in helping the repair to the damage of the plant. And as Russia continues its war against Ukraine, the nuclear security community has warned about the possibility of a military attack against Ukraine's civilian nuclear power facilities. Our program today will begin with introductory remarks from His Excellency Georg Sparber, Ambassador of Liechtenstein to the US. We will then hear a keynote remark from Leslie Hayden, Counselor for Nuclear Affairs, US Mission to the International Organization in Vienna. And the event will follow with an introduction to the Black Sea Women in Nuclear Network and panel discussion focusing on the current situation in Ukraine. We will also, of course, have an active Q&A session. We will be joined today by 3 expert panelists sitting together in Vienna: Natalie Close, Katerina Pavlova, and Madalina Stefanik. And our panel will be moderated by Dr. Jana Wattenberg, lecturer at Aberystwyth University and WIIS Senior Fellow, who we have just recently learned will come on board as a resident fellow with us for the next several years. We will end our time together at 1/4 the hour. We hope that you will be able to stay with us for the entire time. And I look forward to hearing from our speakers about this timely and critical topic. So it is my delight to introduce Ambassador Georg Sparber. Prior to his appointment in 2021, Mr. Sparber held the position of Deputy Permanent Representative of Liechtenstein to the United Nations in New York. And his portfolio includes disarmament, peace, security, and political issues. He has been an exceptional partner, and we know that this is an issue near and dear to his interest and professional expertise. Mr. Ambassador, you have the floor.
Well, thank you so much, Ariella, and dear participants, dear Councillor Hayden, and dear coordinator of the Black Sea Women in Nuclear Network, Madam Close, dear members of the network, and dear participants around the globe. I'm truly honored to co-host this event today with WIIS to discuss nuclear safety and security in the context of the Russian aggression against Ukraine. It's tremendously sad that 36 years after the Chernobyl disaster, we're back at a stage where civilian nuclear power poses a tangible threat to the lives of Ukrainians and their neighbors. Only a few days ago, Ariella, you mentioned it, the IAEA still assessed the situation in Chernobyl as not stable. And while the fallout of the 86 accident was, of course, significantly accrued by deficient and negligent political leadership in the Soviet Union at the time, today we face a situation where civilian nuclear infrastructure can be weaponized by an aggressor that shows no respect for even the most basic rules of international law, tragically also in the area of nuclear safety and security. And that even pertains to Russia's own troops, who seem to have been largely ignorant about the dangers that awaited them in the contaminated area around Chernobyl. So much as our common rule book of international law has failed to deter Russian aggression as such, international humanitarian law and the International Nuclear safety and security obligations have failed to deter Russia's reckless attack of civilian infrastructure, nuclear infrastructure in Zaporizhia and Chernobyl. We owe it to the selfless dedication of Ukrainians at those stations that nothing worse has happened so far. We have, it seems, entered an era where our worst premonitions of reckless militarization of civilian nuclear infrastructure could come true. And as we begin the process of collecting, preserving and processing evidence of international crimes committed in Ukraine, the deliberate Russian attacks on nuclear infrastructure must be an integral part of that effort. Nuclear power plants enjoy special protection status under Additional Protocol 1 to the Geneva Conventions. And that also includes military objectives located at or in the vicinity of such installations. The Russian acts in relation to Ukrainian nuclear sites must be thoroughly investigated, and accountability for those responsible of violating international law must follow. And I really do look forward to learning from the experts of the Black Sea Women in Nuclear Network what the current state of the Ukrainian nuclear infrastructure is and how the risks are currently assessed. But before that, let me just briefly say how really glad I am to share today's discussion with the network and to hear about their important work. In my own professional life, I have had a glimpse into the important gender dimension of nuclear energy, both in its military and civilian use. The negotiations on nuclear issues that I have been part of have tremendously benefited from the leadership and expertise of women. Women have been a driving force behind much needed normative improvements at the international level. We now have treaty law that explicitly recognizes the disproportionate impact of nuclear weapons on women and girls, including as a result of ionizing radiation, but not limited to that. The same holds true, of course, for weaponized civilian nuclear infrastructure and for the fallout of nuclear accidents. And that is why gender-sensitive policy is so central to nuclear safety and security, both in the design of these policies and also in the responses of to any nuclear fallout, no matter the origin. The Black Sea Women in Nuclear Network is therefore an extremely valuable initiative to bring much needed expertise and hopefully also the political leverage that's needed to this discussion. You will always find in Liechtenstein a supporter of this cause, not only because the best experts should always have a say in the discussion, but also because inclusive and gender-sensitive policy is always better policy and more sustainable in the long run. And with that, I'm very happy to hand it back to you, Ariella, and I really do look forward to the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador Sparber, for the kind words about our partnership and that we can always look to Liechtenstein to support the gender, peace, and security agenda and its integration in nuclear security. I'd like to turn the floor to our keynote discussion to Leslie Hayden, a career member of the Senior Foreign Service, who currently serves as a counselor for nuclear affairs, supervising the peaceful use and safeguard sections at the US Mission for International Organizations in Vienna. Leslie also served as special assistant to Secretaries of State Colin Powell and Condoleezza Rice, and as the Russia director at the National Security Council in the George W. Bush and Obama administrations. She is also a 5-time recipient of the State Department's Superior Honor Award and was recently awarded US Special Operation Command's Outstanding Civilian Service Medal for her contribution to the mission of the US Special Operation Forces. We're delighted to hear from you now. Leslie, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. It's an absolute delight to be here with you. And I want you to know how inspiring it was for me to meet yesterday with the Black Sea women, as I call them, and Ambassador Holgate. As I came up through my university studies and I took jobs in the Foreign Service related to nuclear and national security fields, I was often the only woman in the room. So as I looked out yesterday to this, there were, I think, 2 men and maybe 25 women. I felt it was just a wonderful feeling, and I could feel the energy in the room. It was positive. And while this is a very sad and difficult time, I studied in Kiev, and when it was still part of the Soviet Union, which dates me, it was the last year, so I'm not that old. But and then I also studied in Russia and worked in Russia for several years. So these areas, and especially Ukraine, is near and dear to my heart. And this has been a very difficult time, but something that I think benefits from my expertise as well as all the women's expertise. It was mentors such as Ambassador Holgate who always encouraged and supported me. And they inspired me to pursue this career path, even when I was often found in unlevel playing field. So I always try to take every opportunity to pass it on or pay it forward. And so I am delighted to join you here today. Your expertise and your voices are more needed and more important than ever. We need safe nuclear energy for climate change, and climate change can no longer be ignored. Producing novel reactors at scale to reduce carbon emissions while meeting the world's needs for economic growth and sustainable development is an absolute imperative. But the war in Ukraine has dramatically demonstrated the risk to nuclear power plants and nuclear research reactors from armed conflict. The US strongly supports the IAEA Director General Grossi's leadership in moving this issue to the forefront, traveling to Ukraine with experts and galvanizing the international community to raise awareness and funds to support the 7 pillars of nuclear security. And I'm going to briefly review those right now, because this is something that we were very pleased to see Grossi do. We wanted him to focus the world on the immediate dangers and mitigating what was, we believed, and still believe, a terrible risk. 1, it's the physical integrity of nuclear facilities. 2, ensuring all safety and security systems are functioning at all times. 3, ensuring operating staff are able to fulfill their duties, that staff is rotated and do not face undue pressure. 4, secure offsite power supply from the grid for all nuclear sites. 5, uninterrupted logistical supply chains and transportation to and from nuclear sites. 6, effective radiation monitoring and emergency preparedness. And 7, and probably one of the most important, reliable and regular communication. I began by speaking about my mentor, Ambassador Holgate. And another mentor I had early in my career was a very difficult but effective boss. And when I worked for the Federal Aviation Administration as a contractor at the Embassy in Moscow. And one thing he taught me that I recognize in Laura and how effective she's been, Laura's Ambassador Holgate, I have to call her that, is the power of persistence. Even if discouraged and after failure, we must try. And for the serious issues that we deal with, failure is just simply not an option. We have to pick ourselves back up over and over again, because the problems that we encounter in nuclear security, nuclear safety, and national security writ large are problems that threaten the everyday existence of human beings and quality of life. I want to implore you to believe in yourselves and keep going, to work creatively and challenge your detractors. Push the status quo and move stubborn obstacles or people defending an inadequate status quo. Your voices are necessary, and you never ever should back away from giving an opinion that seems to be unwanted or is not popular in the room you are. Anyone can sit around a table and confirm what everyone else is saying, but it's the person that brings their expertise and knowledge and individual experience to the room that can bring a creative solution that no one else has thought about. So I want to close with one of my very favorite quotes from Marie Curie. Life is not easy for any of us, but what of that? We must have perseverance and, above all, confidence in ourselves. We must believe that we are gifted for something and that this thing must be attained. So I wish you confidence, perseverance, and success success in all that you do and in resolving these important issues. And I look forward to hearing your discussions today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Leslie, for your keynote remarks. And please send our regards to Ambassador Holgate, who has been a mentor to myself and so many women, and as a past president of WIIS, and such a dedicated individual and just such a wonderful person. And we share your passion, and I'm delighted to turn over to learn so much more to my colleagues of the Black Sea Women in Nuclear Network. Dr. Jana Wattenberg will introduce, we will have a special presentation from Natalia Close so we can all learn more about the network, and then we will move into the panel discussion. So I will cede the chair now for the rest of the presentation to Jana. Moderator's chair is yours.
Thank you so much, Ariella, and thank you so much for inviting me to take part in this really important and exciting event. I'm so looking forward to learning more from our amazing panelists, and thank you so much to our keynote speakers for your very thought-provoking and quite inspiring presentations. So it's my pleasure now to first of all introduce our three panelists for the remainder of the event, and to then hand over to Natalia to introduce the Black Sea Women in Nuclear Network. So we are joined today by Natalia Close, who is currently the Chief Specialist in Physical Protection at the State Nuclear Regulatory Inspectorate of Ukraine. She has over 18 years of experience in working in the physical protection field, which is an amazing amount of experiences in this field. She is also the nuclear security consultant at the Vienna Center for Disarmament and Non-Proliferation, and alongside all these already very impressive activities, also the coordinator for the Black Sea Women in Nuclear Network. We are also joined by Katarina Pavlova, who works at the State Agency of Ukraine and Exclusion Zone, at the State Agency of Ukraine on Exclusion Zone Management as the head of the Department for International Cooperation and Public Relations. She has, since the beginning of February 2022, throughout the ongoing crisis of the Russian military operation in Ukraine, worked to coordinate communications with Ukrainian and international officials in the field of nuclear and traditional safety and security. Since 2021, she has taken part in the Institute of Nuclear Materials Management Professional Society as an international expert and radioactive waste management in the radioactive waste management sphere. So another expert with extraordinary expertise in this field. We are also joined by Madalina Stefanik, who has worked at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant in Romania for an amazing amount of years since 1988. This is a very important reactor, which actually provides over 20% of Romania's energy needs and has celebrated 25 years of commercial operation, being evaluated by the World's Association of Nuclear Operations as nuclear excellent for the third time. So our panelists provide us with expertise in various elements and areas of nuclear safety, and I'm really excited to learn with and from you about this very pressing topic. Before we get to our panel discussion, it is my pleasure to hand over to a group of very promising looking experts that joins us from a room. I think this is the first time I've seen a room so full of so many speakers joining an online event. So we're looking forward to hearing from Natalia Close about the Black Sea Women in Nuclear Network. Natalia, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Jana. It's my privilege to represent you to such a important, big, I would say, it's almost 1,000, it's a dream, okay. 100 people who joined to us today to our webinar. So it's a newborn and just recently established network. I know it's kind of popular right now to combine women together to professional unions, but it seems that the time is came and everybody want to support each other and to make more, create more recognizable to each other. So there was an issue that was raised during preparation of this webinar, about representation of the women in the field. Well, I would say since I was working for the Ministry of Energy for 16 years, and in 2018, I actually go through our agencies, industry, enterprises, well, through all available actually organizations with getting numbers of representation of women in the nuclear security. So since nuclear security, it's just area where combining physical protection specialists, accounting control specialists, nuclear forensics, computer security response. So you can see from percentage of representations that women are really not underrepresented in Ukraine, at least. If you are talking about the industry, I can't say that that was really good statistic was collected before in recent years, but I can say that our national operator calls Energoatom, who operate for nuclear power plants in Ukraine, has the biggest representation of women in the energy field. It's about 33%, but it's really hard to understand who really specialists in the field and or just on the main number of the staff, I would say. So in Ukraine, in total, about 18% from the all number of working in the nuclear security field who representing women. So it means that at least we need to take more attention to our experts, like to make them recognizable. In 2019, also was started nuclear security master degree program in Kyiv Polytechnic Institute, and I would say every year we're collecting about 25% from number from the students, women, which is I would say that future generation will be more presented with women comparing to the last numbers. So returning to our network. How it was, I just want to show you the history and encourage you to use this link that I provided here about the article was published with James Martin Center for Nuclear Studies about establishment of Black Sea Women in Nuclear Network. That was a project initiated with this center and Los Alamos National Laboratory about creation of this community. So we remember our initiators, Ms. Olga Martin from Los Alamos National Laboratory and Maria Teklina Paul, what she's sitting next to us here in this room. So I can't say they are our mothers, but they are really strong women who creating networking and who collect people who wants to really to join and create something incredible. So our inauguration meeting was held unfortunately in virtual manner. We actually planning to have it in person, but as usually plans are never getting with reality. COVID still was in a strong position, so we need to go only online. It was in the end of November, 29th till 3rd of February, of December, sorry. Very long meeting. Sorry, I will change later. Till 3rd of December, and we have a big representation of participants. It was about 50 participants from different countries and organizations, and we have the privilege to work with experts from different international community, US, UK, participate, European Parliament, as you can see here. Well, now we are located in Vienna Center for Disarmament and Non-Proliferation. They also actually part of our meeting at that time. So actually, as you understand from our name, we are work with Black Sea region, which is combined experts from Ukraine, Moldova, Romania, Bulgaria, and Turkey. No, except Russia. To be honest, of course, they are in the Black Sea region, but they are out of this network. So the mission of our network is to unite, support, and empower women in the nuclear field. It's in this interdisciplinary network brings together STEM women and representatives from national governments, industry, civil society, and academia. So countries I already mentioned. So the main goal here is to promote gender equality and enhance women's leadership roles, as well as offer professional exchange, mentoring, and learning opportunities. I would say today this week we conduct US Black Sea professional exchange meeting, and on this meeting was where also participate. You see here in this room almost 7 or 8 our member from our network, which is different type of meetings. And we are trying to be to go step by step in our goal to achieving promoting of women professionally. So we have 4 working groups. One is about related to expansion of a network. The leader is Shirena Lord Kipanidze, Georgia. So sorry about this very hard name. We have mentoring Madalina Stefanik, you heard her later, from Romania. Activities of the network Katarina Palova from Ukraine, and we are planning to also to have a 4 working group with science in the e-research, but we just looking for the volunteer who will lead this group. So, and me, I am coordinator of this network, at least for 2-year period. So everything will change. Everybody will have an opportunity to play a leadership role. So on this time, we have some public recognition. So you see before there was a link to the article published with Center for Non-Proliferation. We make a statement of our network about environment of Russia in Ukraine. And also we have some videos that was created with Uniquely about voices of Ukraine, peace, safety, and security for our world. So it's our, on this stage, public recognition where you can find us and cooperate. So we have also Google form for future our members who want to join us. Later on, I will send this to the chat if you want. That's all. Since we are very newly born, I can't say that we are actually has done a lot, but I think with all the steps, it will be more. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Natalia, and really nice to see some members of your network joining this meeting as well. It's great to meet you all, and it's fantastic to have you as part of this meeting here today. It is now my pleasure to ask the first question to all panelists. So the first question we would like to ask you is, what is the state of gender equality in the nuclear safety and security field in the Ukraine and other countries in the region? So if it would be okay, I would like to give the word to Katarina Pavlova first. Katarina, would you like to start us off with your answer to this question, please?
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you for this opportunity to be with you today on this meeting. And I can actually show my own example. I had very long way for in my nuclear sphere, and it is very important to recognize that Ukraine is actually a European country already, and we have gender actually equality, and just sometimes for women it is hard to fight for the place in this sphere. It's really difficult to prove that you are valued for this or other position in nuclear sphere. And it's very important also to have experience, to have exchange with colleagues, international exchange, and to have practice, and also to have special knowledge, because nuclear sphere in Ukraine is quite different and difficult, and especially Chernobyl issues. It is something what it's not very often you can meet in nuclear sphere in other countries. So the most important to keep learning every day and never stop to fight for your place in this sphere, and show your example to other young generation, other women, girls, which is on the way to decide in which direction they will learn and which university they will join. So the most important that I learned that Ukraine actually is have very good climate on the sphere for women. Just we need to recognize that we need to keep together, and women should not be like in front of men in this area. We should be in parallel, sitting in one table, round table, and decide a very important issue together. So this is my suggestions for this question. Thank you.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much, Katarina. I would now like to hand over the microphone to Madalina. Madalina, would you like to share with us your views on this first question, please?
Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. I'm so honored to be with you today. Regarding gender, equity, gender, from my point of view, I really want to thank Katarina, because she always present herself as a positive example. I myself a positive example, I think, because I'm working in nuclear domain since 1988. So, and in HR from 2010, so 13 to 12 years from now on. So we have to, yes, we have the policy, but we have to do more than to have this policy in our companies, and because we need to have the women are so powerful, and I see these days from Ukraine example how we can benefit from this. You see, I'm so impressed about them. From the beginning of the war, I send them all my best wishes, and I ask them to call me if they need my support. I'm not from Ukraine, I'm from Romania, and Romania received almost 800,000 refugees from Ukraine. This means are almost all women and children. What does it mean for Ukraine, this influx to other countries? They left almost 12% from their population from Ukraine, which is the future of this country without their people. So if you lose 12% of your population, almost women, and your future, your kids, what does it mean for us? So yes, the women are very powerful, and we need to be good example for other women. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Madalena. And I would now like to hand over to Natalia. Natalia, would you like to share your views on the first question about the state of gender equality and nuclear safety and security in the field in Ukraine or other countries and regions with us, please? Thank you.
I show you on my presentation there was a statistic that I was collect 3 years already ago. I can say that information really changed from that time, at least in security field. People are not really moving when we are working in this area. My almost 20 years of experience, I would say that I saw that it's a really long way to go to the equality, and it's to the balance, I would say. Yes, and earning is really starts from the changing of opinion about women experience, women readiness to work in the field, and trust to them. Because in our country, I can't say for other countries, but in Ukraine, everything depends on the how men who are actually hiring women to work think, do they getting married, go to maternity period for a long time, because comparing to other countries, I know in USA, in other European countries, it's much shorter. Because for your understanding, in first time when you have a child, you can stay at home for 3 years, yes? It's allowed by law. Yeah, it's allowed by law, but you can stay at home for 3 years. Now nobody pays for you, of course, but you can stay, and your place will stay and work. And the second child, you can stay 6 years. And somebody using these opportunities, and of course, some employee thinking, actually, what specials I will receive after this period. It's a main point why men do not take women to the position to work in the field. It's a main conclusion, but I would say situation is changing and more diversity right now this position. And as Madalina says, what's the future for our country when so many women and kids leave our territory? It's hard to predict right now, and hard even to imagine. I know that everybody just waiting when they can come back, and a lot right now statistic on the border shows that the bigger amount of people returning to Ukraine, women with kids returning to Ukraine, because they can't stay in Europe because it's too far, it's too hard to be away from everything that you got there. It's good that your territory is not under bombing, for example, but right now there is no safe place. But about nuclear specialists, they are working in the field. We all our employees who work in nuclear facilities, they are still working there because they are responsible for different processes conducting nuclear facilities. They can't leave their position. Who will replace them? Nobody. And I would say the responsibility of our employees is very hard. It's even higher than thinking what will be next. Especially during the war, yes, it is Katarina mentioned here. So you see this terrifying night, 4th of March, when was attacked the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. Do somebody run from the Energodar from our employee? Nobody. And believe me, there was a big amount of women who stayed there. Okay.
Thank you so much, Natalia. This actually leads over to the next question that I would like to ask the panelists. And it seems to me that many people are quite anxious to hear what the situation actually is on the ground. And we were wondering if you could share with us how you assess the level of threat at each of the 4 nuclear sites in Ukraine and at the Chernobyl nuclear plant. What do you think would be some of the most urgent tasks that need to happen? And maybe you could share with us some ideas of obstacles that make it really difficult for staff to actually take these measures. I would suggest we start with Katarina again. If you would like to please share with us your views on the situation on the ground. Thank you so much.
Yes, I want also continue explanation from Natalia's side. Also, I want to mention the Slavutich city, which were very heroical, staying in front of Russian troops, and also no one ran from the city. And this city is really very, very important city for exclusion zone management for Chernobyl nuclear power plant, because the biggest part of staff is living in Slavutich. And we're so proud that we have very powerful people there, very powerful women also, which will stay in the front of troops and saving the city. So the situation, current situation is really, first issue, of course, is resolve control over objects in exclusion zone. This is very important. And of course, it's really difficult because territory is quite big and a lot of bad surprise we have from Russian troops left it. So we need to check every tree, every piece of ground and every facility. Also, we need to ensure the safe operation of facilities. And it's very, very important also to create imagination and plan what we should do in next weeks, months and years. We need also renovate infrastructure because 90% of infrastructure is destroyed. Bridges, electricity line, and transformers. So we really need big work with infrastructure. And of course, we need human safe condition for staff because it is almost 4,000 workers is permanently work inside an exclusion zone, and we need really provide the safe situation for work. So it is a lot of issues, and I'm sure we will resolve all this with support of international community, with support of donors. And what we need victory, we need peaceful life to continue work with and solve consequences of Chernobyl accident. We have a lot of issues and we have no time for war. We need save our planet. I want also mention that climate change and problem we have in Earth, we really need stay together to work with very important national, international, and world issues. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Madalina, I was wondering, I appreciate you might be based, well, your region expertise might not be necessary just in the Ukraine, but maybe you could share with us your views on what you think some of the most urgent issues might be in the situation, or what is your perception of what would be the most important things to happen next, or what should be our priorities when we think about the situation? Thank you.
Thank you once again. Thank you, Katarina. Thank you, Natalia, for what you are doing in Ukraine. From this point of view, I was worried that times when Chernobyl was attacked by Russian troops. So I discussed with them, and because I knew them that are very good professionals, I was a little bit not so concerned as all Romanian are. But as I don't have expertise in Chernobyl, but the latest news from Chernobyl from today is that we hosted the working visit of the official delegation of the Ministry of Internal Affairs to Chernobyl. So the delegation visited the Special Professional Intervention Subunit Chernobyl Special Fire Brigade with an essential role in maintaining nuclear safety and security for personnel, population, environment, and productions assets within the Chernobyl MPP. So the minister said the current geopolitical context requires us to better coordinate to strengthen energy security and at the same time to promote measures to strengthen energy security. Let us not forget that energy security is essential for national security. So this is our policy regarding security. And as far as I'm concerned, this should be the way all the countries goes. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Madalina. Natalia, finally, I wonder if you could maybe share with us what you think the situation on the ground is, or maybe just what you think also our priorities should be. What are the most urgent tasks that should be prioritized? I can imagine every task must feel like an urgent task, but maybe you could share with us where you see the main priorities. Thank you.
Thank you, Yana. Well, you're right. The most problematic part here is like to choose the priority, what should be done in the first. Like, of course, the first priority is safety from, and other part is radiation protection, because security it's a main what is right now in Ukraine. Yeah. The problem here, talking about details about our country, our critical infrastructure right now, since all information that is discussion on in public in more details, this is something that could be used against Ukraine. It should be understandable. So not really much information right now is available. It's a wartime, and the main problem with conclusion, what was done, probably I think with many people, that in Ukraine situation more is come down, because front was taken from the north, go to the east. It's much safer on the exclusion zone, but war is still coming in Ukraine. We have very hard fighting on the east region, on the south region too, and missiles coming from the Black Sea, missiles coming from the Caspian Sea, missiles are coming from Belarus territory, missiles are coming from Russian territory. So we are under unstopping attack in Ukraine. So our priority right now is what is connected and related to the war. Ukraine do everything what is related to our international obligations. So I am encouraging you to go to the official portal webpage of the State Nuclear Regulatory Inspectorate of Ukraine, snru.gov.ua. There is publishing of information, news about current situation in nuclear field in Ukraine, with radiation situation too, where you can find information that our regulatory body is sharing with our civil society, since it has a connection to the safety of our population. And we are showing there that, for example, we are conducting our safeguard agreement. It's already passed 2 IAEA inspections on Khmelnytska nuclear power plant, on Chernobylska nuclear power plant. So we are doing everything what is need to be done according to our international agreement, convention, how it's supposed to be done in a technical way of operation of nuclear facilities. But we can't control what will happen with war. If, for example, Kharkiv city, yes, in Kharkiv is located of research reactor, neutron source. It's good that it's in a deep critical stopping condition right now, and radiation situation around the facility is equal to normal. But the city is under bombing. Could you really predict where this missile is coming? Nobody could. And you need to understand also, in Ukraine we are all the time under unstopping cyber attacks. So our web pages are attacking all the time, not always working properly, but you can use Facebook also as a source, and Energoatom using their official page to share information what is going on with this nuclear facility. And if you are going to the message from 23rd of April, there is a video where showing how close above the South Ukrainian nuclear plant is going missile. According to the international law, all sky is closed above the nuclear facilities, but this missile, literally, you can see how it just flying. In some way, I don't know. I don't know where it was, and I hope nobody really was hurt. But it's a war. It's difficult, and nobody is ready for the situation. I don't know what to add here.
Thank you so much, Natalia. It sounds like an impossible situation to deal with and to work within. So I was wondering if maybe as the next question to the panelists, I could ask you if you could share with us which support you think you would need right now. So both in terms of as a network, but also in terms of what you would wish the international community maybe to do, what you would wish organizations such as the IAEA to do. If you would have a magic wish for getting one particular kind of support, what would be the support that you think is most important from other actors outside of the Ukraine to help you to deal with the situation? I'm going to open the floor to the panelists now to respond just as you wish to. So you could start speaking if you'd like to, you could raise your hand if you would like to go first. I would also like to remind our audience that we're now moving to the Q&A section of the event. So you can post your questions in the Q&A or you can send them to us in the chat, and we have some pre-submitted questions, so we'll work through as many as possible as we go along. But for now, I wonder if the panelists could share with us, what do you think you would need in terms of support? Which support could help you to deal with the situation?
Okay, I will start like on the plan. So we already have big support, and thank you so much for all your government and international society do, especially also IAEA. And thank you so much that you stay hand by hand with Ukraine in such a terrible time. From my point of view, it is a lot of support we will need in future, and update will be day by day, believe me. I also want to mention like a woman, who have 2 child family, that we so thank you for all support you do for our experts, in this field, especially for women, that you support our fellowship and different our direction what we are doing. So we need save our experts in this field, because it is not a lot, and we move, some of experts move from Ukraine because of condition. I can stay with 1-year-old child and 10-year-old daughter in Kiev region because of this very scary and very dangerous situation. But I can do all my best, and I can use all my knowledge and all my connection to solve and save some of parts in this terrible. So we do appreciate all international society do for us. And my suggestions that please keep going and stay hand by hand, especially also with our sphere and with our expertise. Thank you.
Well, I would say that Katerina mentioned the most important thing here, that when you save people, you will save everything. And Madalina, it's our saver friend who really supports so many Ukrainian women and kids, actually, like from the day the war starts, like come here, we will save you, we will find the place where you can stay for a longer time. And all during this period, we have her like our closest friend.
Thank you. I want to complete what you said. If I would have a magical stick to change something, as far as I saw in these 2 months of war, what are the major problems of the Ukrainian women who left Ukraine? I can tell you, lack of resources, including accommodation, money, physical and psychological trauma, which affect all the aspects of their life, including reproduction for long-term negative results for Ukraine. Restricted access or lack of access to well-paid jobs, mainly due to the language and cultural barriers, will conduct to impoverishment and the professionalization of them. Unable to work because of small kids who need supervision, lack of emotional support from their extended family, target to discrimination, abuse, cheat, etc. These are seen by me in these 2 months from my friends and what they told me. So I will give you examples of drama. Olga left Nikolaev 1 month ago with her 10-month-old son and her mother and a small amount of money. She is project manager in media and her mother teacher. None of them can work in their domain, at least for the moment. The kid was sick and stayed in hospital for 1 week. She said that it's very difficult to find food for the baby. Buckwheat, millet, grain, oatmeal, quail eggs. She did not know that in Romania, this kind of food is used mostly by vegans and it can be found in bio stores, for example. She broke her glasses and lost the last pair of lenses. She has minus 3.75 dioptry and had no money to replace it. One day she was lost in Constanța and she returned at accommodation after a couple of hours. Olga speaks English language and it's very difficult for her to manage the situation. Svitlana was expecting the package from Ukraine through Romanian postmail. The package came to Romania in April 1st and she received it yesterday after 3 weeks. She doesn't speak English language and because of this, she didn't understand the mail instructions. Olena from Odessa left from home with 2 small kids, a boy and a girl, and her mother-in-law because one day the boy had a panic attack. He cried a lot because he doesn't want to die. Now the kids know that they are in vacation and are bored and ask mom when they go home. I met her when she asked for some help because she was scared to go to a strange person by herself. She came with her kids to my place. She didn't know what to expect from someone she met by WhatsApp. I never thought about this. Otherwise, I would have met her outside. She speaks English language and by the way, she's pregnant again. So as far as I know, up to now, every country that received Ukrainian refugees and money from EU try to solve in different manner this situation. But we need a good plan to save these refugees. For example, Romania received up to now 450 million euro for refugees. But because this is a major humanitarian crisis, I suggest to solve it in an unitary manner level as COVID pandemic was managed. Therefore, I see a couple of actions that can be done for refugees in needs during this war, such as a common website for all European unions with all information regarding accommodation, legal provisions, etc. Accommodation for free in hotels or campuses, special organized for this scope. Training in order to learn faster the adopting country language, legislation referring to labor and rights, etc. There are many things that can be done with this money, but we need a plan because otherwise the money will go in and we will not achieve our goal. For example, I think it's vital if the work will continue and many other people will leave the country to have this plan. because in this way we will preserve a healthy Ukrainian nation. This was my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing this, Madalena, and thank you so much for your suggestions as well on what could be done. I'm sure there are members of the audience who are working in various different fields, and hopefully some of your suggestions and visions will be heard and implemented. Now, I would like to turn to one of the questions that has been posed in the chat box, and one of them has been, the military attack on the Chernobyl nuclear facility raised the radiation levels. What are the current levels of radiation and possible impacts on the Ukraine's population? I was wondering if anyone from the panel, or our keynote speakers, of course, also warmly invited to share their views. I was wondering if you could share with us your views on this question. Thank you.
I can answer this question, maybe not totally informative, but of course the level of radiation is increasing, but it happened because of actually military activity inside an exclusion zone, especially for example movement of heavy military equipment on contamination ground. So of course the level somehow increased. And also during the last 2 months, from start of March, we had a big amount of fires inside an exclusion zone, and this also provides a reason of level of radiation. Because of military actions from 25 of February, our system, monitoring system of levels of radiation was shut down, and we had no access to these tools. So from 1 week ago, I think these tools were repaired and restored. And just now we have exactly the levels all over exclusion zone, but average of levels will not increase more higher of levels, which is danger for population. So we have also monitoring system which is conducted by a regulator body, and increasing of levels were not so high that it's danger for population. Thank you.
Thank you. Would any of the other panelists or speakers like to share their views as well? Otherwise, I have one of my favorite questions to continue the discussion. Okay, I go with one of my favorite questions, which is, it is quite challenging, definitely in my experience as someone who is removed from the conflict zone and from the current events as they are unfolding, I think it can be quite challenging to get an idea of what is most important to keep track of. And sometimes I can imagine really important points or issues get lost in the debate. So I was wondering whether, as a final question, I could invite all our panelists and our keynote speakers to share with us, what do you think is one of the most important issues that might have gotten lost in the debate so far? What is something that we haven't really considered enough, that if you could shape the debate, or if you could leave us with something we take as we progress in our days today, we keep in mind? I'll leave it up to you who would like to go first, so please feel free to take the floor.
I think we mentioned just briefly very important questions, and of course war is not stopped, and we don't know which direction it will go. So the updates of these issues, and maybe some other which we're not aware yet, it is very important. So very important to stay together online or physically, just to update the situation and make information change as soon as is possible. And to have updates of these issues, I think every 1 month, it's very, very important, because I think every month we will have resolve one problem and have other problems. So, and it's very important to have expertise, view of expertise from other countries, from other fields, to know, to have best result of solving this or other problems?
Well, I would say one also very important issue that's related that Katerina mentioned here, it's about disinformation and fakes. It's very important to work together on combating all those disinformation and facts that is about Ukraine and situation in Ukraine. We see actually the consequences of this propaganda what was made in Russia to their population, propaganda what was spreading through Europe, through all world by Russia, about all situation in our country and about Ukrainians. Because like I just reading today some story about Swedish woman who really living for 20 years in the very democratic country like Sweden, but is very respectful for everybody and very protecting of people's rights, very social active country. And she really believed in all this propaganda, but she was listening on the Russian TV channels. And she behaved like Volodymyr baptized Ukraine and Volodymyr will похоронить.
Bird.
And other Volodymyr will bury Ukraine. So, and how many people around the world with this opinion? It's very important to all of us together to have to understand what is true, what is fake, and what is the next step to save our democracy, to save our freedom. Ukraine is not so really far from other countries. Believe me, it's much closer, much closer. All consequences with so huge industry country like Ukraine feel everybody, not only from nuclear point of view. Climate change, it's very, very difficult. Everything is related.
I want to complete what Katerina and Natalia said. They are very good ambassadors of the situation, and they can speak very briefly and very good about that. I want to be the ambassador of refugees, of women who left Ukraine. So what women from professional organizations such as Black Sea Women in Nuclear can do for them. From my point of view, to send a letter to European Union officials in order to present the facts and to ask them kindly to implement a strategic plan to save Ukrainian people who left the country seeking safety, protection, and assistance. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I was wondering if our keynote speakers would maybe like to share their views as well on this question.
Well, thank you very much. And I just wanted to, really thank everybody for sharing their expertise today. I think this has been a really good example of why we need to continue to have this discussion on this really critical issue, and the sharing of expertise from this network, I think should also go into the discussions we should have about accountability of the acts that are happening right now in Ukraine related to the nuclear facilities, because much of what we are seeing may amount to very significant violations of international law. And I believe the expertise that is sitting around the table today can be instrumental to help procedures to ensure accountability for these acts. This is important, I think, for Ukraine, but it will also be important for the future to deter similar, courses of action in other cases of conflict. And I would really encourage you, to offer your expertise also in that area when you can. There are a number of important international procedures ongoing, And I think it would be very, very useful to establish that contact with you. And well, thank you again, really. It's been tremendous to be part of this discussion. Thank you for sharing your expertise.
Thank you, Your Excellency. For us, it's very important to be heard by international society and to share what's happening in Ukraine and see the support of other countries. We, as Katerina said, we appreciate for everything that is doing by our partners, each person who's supporting of Ukraine, because so many people by their own wishes doing so much for our citizens, and this is unstopping help, and it's very valuable. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Councillor Hayden, I was wondering if you would like to share some of your views with us as well.
I guess the thing that I think is most missing that I see from the conversation right now all around, and especially in the United States, is how does this all end in a way that we can live with? And how did we not escalate it to the point that to an unfathomable consequence, which is global nuclear war? You have, I just don't see that enough people paying attention to that. I feel like we're caught up, I mean, necessarily so. We are trying to deal with all these terrible issues of the attacks on the nuclear plants and keeping the refugees fed, and all of this is absolutely priority. But there has to be a group that needs to think very carefully about where we go from here and how this can end, and then work backwards, look at what could be a workable solution, and then work backwards from there. And I don't see a lot of people concentrating on that right now. You know, Russia's not going away and Ukraine's not going away. And we're just going to continue to have this deadly conflict until we figure out how to resolve this issue. It may be a compromise that nobody is happy with, but everyone can live with. It may be something that, you know, we don't even know what it's going to look like. But the dialogue, it's been especially worrying to me lately that I've heard that the dialogue has stopped about some sort of ceasefire or peace agreement. And that's where, you know, that's where my expertise lies. And that's what I'm really worried about.
Thank you so much for those really important final words. I would now like to bring this discussion to a close and start off by thanking our keynote speakers and our panelists so much for your insights into this really important and, I mean, for me personally, quite upsetting topic. I can honestly say I've been inspired and moved by each and every single one of the presentations today. And we wanted to thank you so much for sharing your views, for sharing your experiences, for sharing your visions for what's important going forward. It has been tremendously insightful for us to have you join us here today. Thank you so much to the audience for being part of this event. Thank you for all your questions. Thank you for your interest in this topic. Finally, thank you so much to the WIIS team, especially Karen and Roxana, for doing such an amazing job in organizing the event. Thank you to the Embassy of Liechtenstein for supporting this initiative. It is wonderful to have you join us here today as well. And thank you all so much for allowing me to be part of this event. Maybe a final word to our panelists who are currently in the region, in the situation. Please know that all of our thoughts and hearts are with you, and you're doing such amazing work. And I'm completely impressed and overwhelmed by how great it is what you're doing, and what I can only imagine must be an enormously challenging situation. Now, I now would like to bring this event to a close, but if I'm not mistaken, there will be a recording of this event for anyone who would like to maybe have a look at the recording. And otherwise, thank you all so much again, and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Nice to see you.